while Nemesis had a very good run through the qualification for this very event for Assembly.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a hard one.
All right, we won't write them out so soon then.
Yeah, so Nemesis themselves have actually, as a team, have actually been together probably longer than pretty much any other Finnish team. Now the old Giganti that was NIP was broken up and pulled apart for Overwatch League. So they've been around for a very long time, but have never really found a whole lot of success. Key for them is there was a couple of players. Olu, who is their Genji player, who's been there a lot for a long time. He's like their superstar. He is the Finnish Shadowburn, if you will. He's the go-to guy. All their plays revolve around setting him up for big Dragon Blades and helping him carry. Whether we'll see that be so effective in this new meta, where we might see more tanks, Genji's a bit less effective, we'll have to wait and see. The other big impact player is Ice, who's very recently come onto the team in an off-tank role for Team Nemesis. And he plays quite a sacrificial role, very much putting his body on his line for his team, happy to just get demeched if he makes space, but he adds a lot to the communications of the team. And since he's come in, that's where their turn in fortunes has really started to come from. And obviously sort of ending in this. We'll see how far they can get in there. Yeah.
Taking that over then to Ence, then you say it's a fairly new roster in some ways for their part. Who are their standout players? Who are their new guys? Who are the ones to watch in that roster?
So I guess one of us we have to talk about for this is Elfie, who is their coach, who's coming in to play flex support because their previous flex support, Stage, who was pretty good, saw him play in Pit Championship, if anyone caught that, wasn't available. So they've had to bring him in rather last minute, could be a potential weak link, and we'll have to see how that works out.
Yeah, interesting to see how our coach can set into the roster. Different playing with them as it is to watching and analysing going on afterwards, but if anyone's going to do it, I'm sure he's a better fit than random guy out of the ranked queue.
Yeah, I guess there's upsides and downsides to having your coaching game. Obviously, your coaching game can help remind you all the strategies the more experience playing that Stage did bring. So also on their team, you have Olber and Lally, who have been, again, around Overwatch for a very long time. And they've never been the sort of spectacular carry DPS, but they've always been very solid. They can play a large range of heroes between them. And they'll be the sort of players that I imagine they'll be relying on somewhat just to keep it steady, keep the pressure on. But I wouldn't write Nemesis off right yet.
No, so I want to talk actually about the maps before we dive straight into the first one. The order that we are seeing these in, if I have read this correctly, very similar to what we saw our first game in. We're starting out in Nepal again, we're following it up with Eichenwald, and then we're going to Lijiang Tower for the third map. If we go further than that, we're hitting a Route 66 for number 4, and we're wrapping it up with Hollywood as number 5. So identical, basically. But we'll see if we get that far, if we get outside those top 3, because our first series of course, Giganti took those first 3 maps kind of comfortably. We're starting on Nepal then. It was a shaky start for Giganti, but they brought it back and came on through. Now, Ence and Nemesis, they're starting on a different control point than we saw. How is this going to shake out?
So I imagine we should see fairly big dives from both teams, though right now it does look like Nemesis are going pretty heavy on the tanks, going for that triple tank lineup. Interesting pick. This is Nemesis map pick, so they will be hoping for a strong start against Ence. If they can start strong here, they also picked the control map we're going to see in map 3, which was Lijiang Tower. So if they can win both these control maps, then it's completely open then. Ence right on the back foot as we get into the first fight.
Here we go. First one comes on through. The locks are in. Do have, as you say, Zarya, Roadhog, and Reinhardt, and D.Va. There's a very heavy tank combat from Nemesis, and they get straight in onto that point with their Lucio for speed. Now around one side, Ence have got their Zarya up very low already, as is their Reinhardt, already taking a lot of damage. A quick flank to the left from Olber on his McCree gets around the side, starts doing a lot of damage as Reinhardt will fall. Nemesis is the first one to lose anybody, but the heals are coming out and keeping their Roadhog back up. Ice is also very low, but Roadhog will fall. Ice is now out of mech and it's going to be wrecked off straight afterwards as Lucio will fall as well. And Nemesis are falling left, right, and center. Ence eSports take control of the control point with ease, out losing a single member. They are now comfortably sitting on point.
Yeah, it's what you see. So the key there was obviously the flashbang that Olber hit, and that opened up Kuhiha. Shield has gone for one side, whereas Ruafe is still able to protect his team. They just powered forward, steamrolled forward, and now they've got a slight ultimate advantage going into this next fight.
Nemesis trying to flank up the left side. The ult's coming up from McCree. See if he can get. He gets Lucio. picked up just the one. Moira also going out from either side, back and forth. Kuhiha is dead again. Down goes Raustu and their Roadhog as well. The revives come out, but they are still obviously back at spawn. Still a lot of ultimates available for Ence. They cleaned up that attack from Nemesis without really using any of them, to be fair. Now they're lying in wait for the next push to come forward again.
Yeah, we saw Olba get separated in that last fight, and Carvarowsko actually had an opportunity for a one-on-one. Somehow loses that one as Roadhog. And now we see the Graviton come in, and everyone's caught in this corner.
It's that big Graviton. They're all pinned on down. The ult comes out from Cully to pick off 3 as well. Nemesis are getting cut to pieces, tucked in this corner. They're also all coming up, but half the players that have them are dead, and they will get stopped in their track. 5 out of 6 players on Ence's was currently on fire. That only took them 2 ultimates.
Yeah, so yeah, sensible ultimate usage from Ence there, but now this is the opportunity for Nemesis. They must win this fight, not just because of the time left, because of their ultimate advantage. And preferably, they wouldn't want to use all 4 ultimates here, so they start coming through this front door.
He uses his, the ult comes out from D.Va as well, the ult's there from Lucio, and they are stacking them big time, but another ult is there from Zaharia from Ence to keep them all pinned in the corner, but they are still healthy because of that ult coming out from Moira. She's still got it in her back pocket, but they're starting to pick up some kills. D.Va, Reinhardt, and McCree all dead from Ence eSports, and they are starting to crumble. The point is being swung back in Nemesis' favor, but there's still a few people from Ence left alive, and the overtime tick is there. However, Nemesis do manage to take control right on the button, and now they do have a couple of ultimates still in their favor to defend it with.
Yeah, exactly what we wanted to see there. As we see this Riptide come out, this is just going to buy time for him. If he gets a kill, great. If not, no big loss. But going back to that previous fight, as I don't think you'll actually find anything here. They backed up fairly well.
No.
Oh, we'll get into D-Mech. That's annoying. So they're going to buy more time here. So key here for Nemesis is they just want to buy time, because even though the ultimates finished fairly equally towards the end of that fight, Lally is a lot closer to the Graviton than Olu. So they're just trying to buy more time for Olu, because Graviton is such a match-winning and round-winning fight. So they just did a great job of that too.
Yeah, we saw a couple of big Gravitons already. It does look like Ence are making their push forward. They're going on out. Aldo's taking low already, but he's now got his ult up, and here they come. Moira ult being channeled straight through onto the point, and a lot of players are getting low on Ence, but the ult comes out from Nemesis and Lucio, keep them all healthy. They'll start to trunk through the shield as Olba falls down. Reinhardt goes for Ence as well. There is Olu's ult. He's now up onto the board. If he wants to, he can Graviton, but Ence are already falling back before he even needs to use it. It's a good hold from Nemesis, and they get the Reinhardt ult up at the last second. They got an even better position now for their next fight.
Yeah, all came back to that Riptide from Carvarowsko. He bought the time before he seemed to build up the ult, and crucially, Bavev was able to get that sound barrier, and it helped him survive, and now they've got the Graviton advantage, and from this point here, Nemesis should win this round.
They've only got 25% left to go. They've got 3 big ultimates left to hold it with. Their Ruape is very, very low, and they're going to push out on him. Here comes the Graviton ult. It pins them all in. It's huge. They have used the ult from Reinhardt as well, and they've got a Riptide up again. And you see Ence just falling in the center of that point. They are going to continue the pressure with the players they've got left alive, but there's not a lot of health left on their McCree. Their D.Va is pushed off to one edge too, as she is low health on her mech, but is on her way back as people are reviving. 96%, 97% for Nemesis. Kuja still has his ult, and Ice is getting lower and lower. There's the overtime ticking over in favor of Nemesis, and they manage to hold and take the victory from 99% in Ence's favor. A complete sweep.
Yeah, really sensible play from Nemesis, and it's good to see them winning that fight, not just in the short term in terms of the engagements and the team fights they take, but also winning the longer fight in terms of the ult economy and playing around, making one play to set up a play later down the line, buying each other time for their ultimates, and that's the sign of a top team. And Ence certainly going to be maybe feeling a little bit edgy going into this one now after losing that first round.
Yeah, that's not going to feel good after getting it on to 99% and then just losing control and spiraling downwards to lose the entire map. It's now going to head on over to, well, not the entire map, but the entire point. Now heads on over to control point number 2. We are back outside again. Now this is where we saw Faraz come out to play for our first game today between Giganti and FC Lati Menace, but this time around it's just the one Farah, so we do dive straight onto the control point. for Ence this time around. There we go. Nemesis bringing it out, but nothing for Ence. Ence have already lost Olber as their McCree is down and out of the picture. They also, however, pick off a return of 3, taking down Winston, Diva, and Lucio. Out goes Tracer, and it does look like a good start for Ence this time around, but they started well before. They just couldn't make it last. They get control of the point, and the point starts ticking on through.
Yeah, good read by Ence. They went straight to the point directly with their tank composition, completely negate a lot of the impact he can do. Like, yes, he's got his ultimate up really quickly, he's got that, but it's just through doing chip damage. You can't really isolate anyone or pick anyone off, especially against some of these tanky targets. But now they're moving in with this barrage. Snap has the coalescence on Ence's side.
So we'll see down to one edge comes the Pharah. They're all tacked up on the point. Coalesce goes out, but they are moving them around all over the place. The heal's coming through, trying to keep the Diva up. There's the ult comes out from Olu, but it only gets Diva. They are continuing the pressure up, and picking up a couple of kills of their own. 4 dead members of Nemesis. Ice's mech is going to fall, and she'll fall quickly afterwards. Keep themselves healthy and alive, and they've got a couple of ultimates still in their favor for the next fight. There comes up the big one from Reinhardt as well. They've got Lucio's, which will continue keeping them healthy, and Holber, if he can get a good pick off, will take that. I was going to say Pharah straight out of the sky when she comes back in, but they've switched off Pharah and gone back to Zarya.
Yeah, I like this coming out from Olu, having no impact really on that Pharah, and now he's going over to Zarya. Will be at an ult disadvantage, but they're moving him much more directly onto the point here on this right-hand side. But Earth Shatter up for Ruape. Yeah,
Ruape's got a big Earth Shatter that's potentially around this corner. He's lining it up, finding an opportunity to get one down. He does land it on not so many people, though. The pressure going to keep coming through. Nemesis does still lose a lot of players as their Lucio falls, their Moira falls, their Reinhardt and their Zarya are down. And it's just left Diva trying to fall back, and she will die, as does Junkrat. They get a full team wipe before the revives come through, and Ence are holding at 80%. One last push then for Nemesis. They've got to go up against a Moira ult. No other ult, and a Zarya ult, which is going to sting, but they do have a Junkrat ult to play with.
Yeah, this is super tough for now. They need something miraculous out of one of their ults really here. The Riptide needs to do something big. As we watch Carvarowski move around this right-hand side with it, Pancake.
It's coming around the back, he's getting onto the point, looking for what he can find. He takes Elfie down, but that is just the one, and it's not enough as the point stays in Ence's hands and does go over to them for round number 2, evening it out.
Yeah, nice little Graviton at the end there, just to grab them just off the point so they can't have it, especially Graviton was buffed recently, so less play, or not recently, a few months ago, so that people couldn't escape so well. But we don't really see a lot of Zarya, so we've not really seen the full effects of that come into play. But now against these tanky compositions, they've got nowhere to go and they just get trapped. And that looks a lot better for Ence, and they absolutely dominate in that point. And now we're coming into Sanctum, which again is somewhat more tank favoured, so you may be starting to worry a little bit here for Nemesis now. Yeah, the good start is coming to an end.
They showed moments of brilliance in their previous rounds. Let's see if they can do it again here. They're currently sticking with their trusty Reinhardt-Zarya combo. Zarya didn't really come out at all on the last round, of course. They played that Pharah until almost too late. But sticking with the Junkrat can do a lot of damage here, and Ence are getting chunked down very early on. They already lose their Reinhardt, and now the healing's got to come out to keep the rest of the team alive as long as they can. Kali's getting chunked low. The Junkrat is also very, very low as Kali will get out of her mech. They won't finish off that Diva before she's gone through. Moira forward, but now for the Nemesis to get initial control of this point.
Yeah, Kuhia just got the better of a Reinhardt fight. You can see he was already at basically double of the ultimate as well. And they were just able to push forward off the top of that, and now this is a great position for them to be. They do lose Hepper, didn't quite see when that happened.
Junkrat just fired a couple of grenades over that wall. She stepped straight into them, and it gave him his Riptire as well. It's going to come straight out now. He's looking for an opportunity to get around the back. Does jump it onto the point, doesn't do any serious damage, but it does give them a moment to think. Another good ult comes out from Kuiha, but Ruape's got his up now as we see both Reinhardts with that Shatter in play. A lot of healing and a lot of damage coming out from this Moira, but Ence are the ones on the back foot as they're losing more and more players. A lot of low health members for Nemesis, but ultimately they're alive, and that's what counts, and it allows them to hold and regain control of the cap point.
So with this more tank-heavy compositions coming back out, Reinhardt plays a much bigger role, and right now Kuhia is simply just outclassing Ruape. We need to see more from the Ence Reinhardt, and if he can't get a grip of this Reinhardt battle, Ence are going to really struggle to find a way back into this game.
So the ultimates are once again in Nemesis' favor. They're all on fire as the push comes out from Ence on the right-hand side of their spawn. They are in a very clumped up spot, and they are in a very small space. The Diva ult's going to land right on them, and a great Riptide takes down 2 tanks from the Ence push. Nemesis have that Lucio ult to keep them all healthy as well, and they are continuing to push back Ence's spawn. All 3 tanks are dead now as Diva fell as well, and once more Ence have to fall back and wait for their response.
Yeah, nice little play there, sending a self-destruct deep, forcing Ruape to turn his shield, and the Riptide comes with the back, takes off 2. They commit the sound barrier to help them win the fight despite their numbers disadvantage. And now they're still in control of a point, but there are a lot of ultimates down here, so great chance for Ence to get back on the point, and they're just running straight onto it.
They are. They have the Diva out. If they can land it in a good spot, it will completely clean out Nemesis. But the Riptide comes in from Lully and gets 2 to start it off. Nemesis are at a deficit without their Lucio or their Reinhardt. Ruape gets 1. Elfie will grab another. They are looking good here for Ence. It's at 76% for Nemesis, but they are going to lose it in just a moment. Can they retake it in time? 80% then as it ticks on through. It's going to get a little bit higher, but stops at 82. And now Ence have control. They've got 3 ultimates up. Only the 1 on Nemesis, but they're close for Kuhiha's next Reinhardt ult, and he's been making big plays with that so far this game.
Yeah, a huge advantage for Nemesis here in terms of control point. Both teams have a Graviton, so it's all going to be who gets the better value, but Alba goes first, actually, catches everyone. Self-destruct gets thrown into it, and I think they might just take the reset here.
I think they are actually in and looking for an opportunity. It does take down Lally, so Junkrat on Junkrat. Considering a switch over, Hepper though pushes in. He's got ult up on Moira. It's trying to hold his off-tank and Junkrat up forward. Ence are back onto the point. It's at 50%, and they do still have the ult advantage. But
this is fine, actually. Like they didn't use the Graviton, they didn't use the Earth Shatter, they didn't use the Moira ult. This is a great situation for Nemesis now. They should win this fight.
I take it back. No ult advantage at all. Nemesis have 4 up. They're going on in, and they are on the point. There's the Graviton goes out. Reinhardt's there too and swinging around. Moira ult's coming through. Kuhiha is low, but he's being healed up. Ruape will fall. Kali's mech has gone down now. Ruape fell without using his ult at all. That's going to be a big thing for Ence. They are at 70%, but they're slowly losing players. But they're turning it as Nemesis picked off and lost 3. They are somehow kicked back and pushed away from the control point as Ence tick over and take the lead up to 83% now. It's going to be one last push for Nemesis. And they are definitely down on ults this time.
Yeah, that was a disaster, really, of a push. They wasted so much, but they do get a couple of picks off, so they are able to gain a lot of ground for free here. Kuhiha now getting aggressive onto Rupe. Going to start swinging away. Earth Shatter up for Rupe. He could end this here, and he gets 2. That should be enough. Graviton comes out as well. Sound barrier's back, but I think it's too little too late. They're just getting overwhelmed here.
They're doing what they can. Kuhiha's down. The Junkrat's going to respawn, but they're trying to keep the overtime ticking over. They do have Olu, very low health, but up. Diva and Lucio and Moira all dead. Their overtime is just ticked on now, and Ence will take map 1, 2 rounds to 1, with a nail-biting finish on that 3rd round.
Yeah, you have to feel bad for Nemesis there. That was a little bit of a choke at the end. They Graviton landed well. Obviously, relatively easy to hit Gravitons with so many tanky opponents, but the follow-up just wasn't there. They made a bit of a mess of it. Kuhiha threw in the Earth Shatter, didn't really get anything for it. Was quite easily blocked by Ruape in the end. And we see the play of the game here. Just classic Diva cleanup with those jet boosters.
When it's done, Ruape, you say, blocking 22,500 damage. That Reinhardt was a big point for Ence. Okay, as you mentioned in that 3rd and final round, he actually lost a lot of the different Reinhardt battles. He wasn't making as much of an impact with his ultimates as Kuhiha, but he was still blocking the damage. He was still there for his team, and it clearly made a big difference for them.
Yeah, no, certainly got a grip of it. I wouldn't say he turned it around completely and dominated it, but he did enough. He certainly got his team back in it. He stopped getting exposed. Like those first couple of fights, he was like the first person to die, and you can't let that happen in a Reinhardt battle, or your team's never going to get a chance to play the game properly.
No, yeah, but he, in the last couple of pushes, kept himself alive. He stayed on his feet, and you could see as the result was it held the point. They held the fights, and despite using up a lot of ultimates on Nemesis' side, they just couldn't break through and couldn't hold the point. We will now head then on to Eichenwald as map number 2. Nemesis got to be looking at this a little bit differently. The rounds which they did better on at the start of that control like that might be something here on Eichenwald they can work with.
Yeah, one of the greatest strengths of Nemesis is Olu's Genji, and we touched on it before, and that he might not get a chance to play that much Genji.
Yeah.
And so far, he's not played any Genji. No. So when you've got a player who's so good at Genji, and unfortunately you just can't get him onto Genji, I mean, particularly around the 2nd stage, maybe for 1st stage I can understand not running Genji, but on that 2nd stage when we're around a lot of the high ground, I really hope that they put Olu back on Genji and give him a chance to show you what he can do, because they do seem slightly outclassed in this battle of the tanks. They don't seem so clean on their execution, Nemesis knows.
Again, it's very early. They're still preparing their heroes and stuff, but at the moment they're sitting on the same 6 heroes that they started map number 1 Nepal on. There's 4 tanks with a Moira Lucio to back it up as a hefty push to get forward and take control of that that first control point and activate the payload. How do you feel that for tank to support might fare?
It's going to be a tough one, especially as it looks like they're toying with the idea of a Pharah as well.
Yeah, they may switch it now.
And that's going to mess them up a little bit. It could work, but when we see these big tank v tank compositions, a lot of the geometry kind of becomes inconsequential because everyone's just running along the floor and engaging very directly with each other. So it all just becomes a lot more about cycling ultimates and who can pull off their ultimate combos and executions the best. And if we go back to that Sanctum game just briefly, and that's what happened in that final fight. Nemesis failed their execution on the combo, and they're actually going to be running the 4 tanks on the offense here, Panky.
Yeah, they're going to try and beef their way forward to the first point. See how they do. They are straight up into Ruapi's Reinhardt to begin with. Kuiha gets low and has to back away, but he's healed back up. Olu is picked off though by Ruape. It's a great pick from him. Ice is going to get demech very quickly, and Kuiha is out as well. That's 2 of their big tanks gone as Roadhog will fall to make it the 3rd, and it's a team wipe for Ence as Nemesis crumble before they even get close to the first point.
Yeah, Riptide already up for Lally as well, so that's going to buy even more time. And you see Carvarowski swap off to the Junkrat, and that's what they've done before, add a bit more damage, and I think that will help. And it's now pretty similar comps for both teams, but we do see
Carvarowski gets picked off without doing any serious damage. It's a good pick up for Carvarowski. We do now see the push coming forward. Kuiha gets pushed into the back spot and will get taken out because of it. Carvarowski is now down, and that's a lot of damage gone for Nemesis, but they picked off the Lucio and Reinhardt on Ence as they now continue the damage up. Kali is going to get demexed momentarily if they can keep the pressure going, but she won't as she gets healed on through. They've lost Lucio and D.Va, and they are falling back. So once again, Ence have held. Lally picking off that kill onto D.Va was the point that triggered it, and Ence again holding firm on this first point.
Yeah, they got a couple of kills for Team Nemesis, but Ruape and Elfie already speed boost back to the point. Here comes for Riptide from above as the aggression comes out as well. We're going to be Graviton. This could work out really well for them.
It does. Graviton in, and the Retire will take down 2 that tick within it. They do pick up a couple of important kills, but Ence have returned it by picking off Lucio, Moira and Reinhardt themselves. So while the damage was there for Nemesis, they've got no one left alive to back it up. Ence manages to continue their hold for now. Moira pushing Zarya back and away. Not a whole lot of damage, of course, but it's enough to be annoying, and there's not much left for your team to back it up. It's going to do the job. Lucio ult comes out as Nemesis respawns her in, and they are back and forward onto the point. But there's the ult comes out from Ence. Zarya keep them all pinned in as the Junkrat Lally is continuing to put pressure on. Lots more kills coming through for Ence, and Nemesis looked like they had a great start with that Zarya Junkrat combo, have again been rebuffed and pushed back towards their spawn with no points towards that cap.
Yeah, it can take so long to clean up these tanks sometimes, and when there was that late coalescence from Snappy as well, it just meant that Olu could just never finish enough of the kills, and it gave time for him to get the Graviton off and for Rapid to come back in. And Rapid lands another charge. That's like 3 in a row he's landed at this choke point.
Yeah, all in that same point too, straight into that doorway or that corner. Gets his shield back up again and continues to protect his team behind. The ult comes out, the Earth Shatter does grab couple of important kills. Ice was demexed and he will fall quickly after. Moira's down 2. The Reinhardt's gone. Lucio's gone. Junkrat again down. He does have his Riptide, but he's dead. It's only Zarya left alive. She manages to fall back, but momentarily picked off with the team respawn. And again, Ence hold this first point. There's only a minute left now here for Nemesis, and they are really struggling.
Yeah, not a single tick, and you have to start feeling that they can't take them on in these tank-v-tank compositions. They maybe need to switch it up completely, move something more high mobility. We see another Riptide come out from Lally.
Both used it. Lally uses one. Lally takes Carvarowski out himself as the Riptide war goes to Ence. They also have the Moira ult and Lucio ults up, ready to defend this next big push, because it's going to have to be one more from Nemesis. 25 seconds to go. They're quite away from any of their ultimates, and they have to make this count. Going to come straight on through, looking for another charge back from Ruapi. He does go on out. There's the ult from Lucio. The Moira ult coming through, chunking down Nemesis. They're being cut to pieces. And they're already 5 dead. Once again, Olu's the last man standing. He's already fallen way back. They're going to chase him out. And if the last 5 seconds ticks on through, it's a phenomenal hold from Ence eSports.
Yeah, no reason to hold on to their ultimates there. Only 10 seconds left on the clock, holding out the choke point. And in all honesty, to be fair, once they'd already gotten in that situation of being so many ultimates down with 10 seconds left, there's nothing they can do but get destroyed by those 4 ultimates. Yeah, but it's everything that led up to that. There was maybe one time
they really defeated looking team right there.
Yeah, there was what one fight where they really broke through that first choke point.
And then nothing to follow it
Yeah,
up. They broke through it and then fell flat. And the respawns came out from Ence. They ran all the way back and were there in time to clean up the remaining members of Nemesis. And that has got to have been, and it felt like it from watching them play, the moment that broke that round for Nemesis. Not just in, as you say, the ultimate management and the amount they expended into it to make it happen, but mentally and for the morale too. We couldn't have asked for really a better push. They made it through and it crumbled, and they never really looked like they were on the way back up after that point.
Yeah, I don't want to make excuses here because there's obviously still time for Nemesis to come back, and both teams are in the same situation patch-wise, but it certainly feels like this patch is hitting Team Nemesis a lot harder. Like, if I were them, I would just ignore what they think seems to be the meta or where teams are moving towards and just play their own game. Because they've tried playing into the meta, and Ence right now look categorically better than them at it. So they need, I would change it up. I mean, they're not going to, once we get the on-screen cam. They are actually running the triple tank and Junkrat defense with Lucio and Moira.
Well, here's the thing. As a defense, do you think it may fare them any better, or is that really not much of a factor?
I think you've probably lost this map if you're Nemesis. I think you probably know that going in, and I think I'd rather just play your normal composition, have half a map playing that, go into the third one on the control map that you picked, playing that more dive-heavy composition, and then at least you're a little bit warmed up on it. You've got a bit into the rhythm. But you never know. We saw one full hold. Maybe we'll see another.
We will. Here comes the Ence push then. They are out of the gate with Lally on Tracer this time round, but otherwise sticking to what they know. And here they come through the choke point. Ruape looking for an opportunity. The charge comes forward. There's a lot of damage bouncing around, but everyone's still alive at the moment. Lally gets a quick heal up, but Kuhiya is them here as it did when he was Reinhardt in on Nepal. They've also lost their Junkrat, who was 80% charged on his ult. The pressure's going to keep coming from Ence. They are looking to dive onto the point. They've taken down Ice's D.Va after demecking her as well. They're starting to tick up the point itself. Ult's already being used here from Moira as she's coalescing through. Lally will finish off Heifer as Kali gets Olu, Ruape gets Vav, and they get control of the point with so much time left to spare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Team Nemesis certainly made that attack look harder than Ence did.
Yeah.
And we saw Kuhiya try and go aggressive. Maybe he went. If you look at the charge Kuhiya makes, this is actually a replay from Ence's defense.
Yeah.
But the charge Kuhiya made actually went deeper. Like, he went past that archway, whereas Ruape's always went into the corner. I mean, I still feel like they certainly could have done more to punish Ruape for charging so early on into fights. But compared to that, so he's Junkrat ult as well, so clearly had followed up on it. But they just couldn't fight. Like, Ruape was so low that entire time Kuhiya was on him. He was so low, somehow stayed alive, and as a result, it meant that Snape got his Moira ult slightly earlier. They got Ruape's Earth Shatter slightly earlier, and all those little edges just going in their favour. I mean, it was always going to be a tall ask for a full hold on that point. But we're going to be moving into Lijiang Tower now, Panky. And something needs to change for Nemesis.
Something needs to change for Nemesis, but I'm worried that they're a broken team right now. As you can see on their faces, they are not looking like a confident squad. They're already looking pretty deflated, and after a defeat like that, I can't really blame them to have a map go so heavily against you after ultimately the first round, Nepal being pretty close in the grand scheme of things. They got the first round. They held the second and third very, very tightly, but then to just be crushed so convincingly in Eichenfeld, you've got to be able to shake it off and get yourselves back into this fresh, and that in its own is a skill in its own right. That's something that comes with experience, that comes with training, that comes with strong mental fortitude that players don't necessarily have right out the gate. It's something you have to learn, and they may not be ready for that yet.
Yeah, they were only one fight away from winning the pool. Like, this could have been a completely different series if Ence don't get that early win. Obviously looking strong now. We are going to Control Center, so this is the most tank-favoured stage of all of the Lijiang stages, and we're going to see tanks again.
So we'll see which way it goes, because so far the tank favours have been Ences, and they have been dominating. We did, as I say, see a couple of moments when Kuhiya was winning the Reinhardt war over Ruape, but it swung back on that last map. We do have a Genji now, but it's on Olba, not Olu, so we'll see what kind of impact he can make with it. Maybe it inspires Olu to switch over himself, but the fights are beginning already, and the damage is coming out. Ruopi's very, very low. Olbeck trunked down, but again, getting healed up nicely. Some good trades for both squads coming out here. The Genjis go deep. Kali's been D-necked. Olba, very low, has to back on out, though, but Kali won't be finished off. Ruopi again low, but he does get caught in the Earth Shatter, and the Falls comes through. Kuha, he goes down, but Ruopi and Olba do as well, so that's 2 in favor of Nemesis, with only losing 1. This is a good fight their way, and they're actually getting control of the control point, so it's a good start. They get the ult out from Lucio too to top them all up and keep them all healthy. Moira is trying to trunk them down, and the Riptire is coming out very, very close for range. It takes down 2. Elfie and Lally will go. Ence eSports are being pushed back once again by Nemesis, and it's a great start. Can they hold on to it?
Yeah, they got the sound barrier much earlier there and actually committed it, but they didn't find any kills directly with the sound barrier. They had to rely on the Riptire still, so they invested a lot of ultimates to get this first control. So they're coming into a big ult disadvantage for this defense, but Olu only 18% away from that Graviton. But he will have it after Lally as we go into the fight.
Kuhiha uses his ult, didn't see anyone go down to it. Elfie's got his, Olba has his as well now, but the Graviton goes in. Genji's going straight down in the middle, he picks off 2, 3, he's going to keep going, it is poor Lally picking up a lot of the kills, and Team Nemesis melt for that Graviton, but they do return with Ruopi. Olba went down as well, but Elfie still got ult. Snappy dies before using his. We are seeing a couple of good kills turned back for Nemesis, but they still do not hold control of the point, and they are now back on their back foot.
Yeah, you've got to question Olu's decision to throw in the Graviton there after Lally's already used T. Then Coalescence is going straight in. Defensive sound barrier comes out. All the ultimates being thrown here by Ence, trying to hold on to it. Self-destruct in the air. Finds no one here, Panky.
No, Ence going big, but Lucio will fall. Down goes the Reinhardt, and comes the ult from Junkrat. He does take down Elfie. Olu will fall down, take down Olga as well, but Karafsku, sorry, is very low health and will be picked off. There are 5 Nemesis still left up. Olga is down as well, but the point is still comfortably in Ence's hand. Fights are cracky back and forth, but they are happening deep in Nemesis territory, and they can't get close enough to the point with it. Kuhi has melt as they get back close to the point, and that's going to have to put them back. There's an ult coming out from the Lally's Graviton already, and it's a melt as Nemesis just managed. With their tank being dead so far, that Graviton was a free point for kills, and now they're being chased back towards their spawn again. Cleaned up, every little thing being picked off to help charge the next Graviton back up again. Olba almost has his ult ready. There is an ult almost up on Snappy's Moira again too, and Nemesis are once more pinned back in their spawn.
Yeah, Lally the only person up with his ult there, the only person with his ultimate up there, so pretty easy for him, but they have the both support ultimates now, so they do have an advantage coming in, so they just need to avoid the Dragon Blade as they try and move him through this choke point.
See if they can pull it off. The ults come out from Lucio and Moira as they keep the pressure on through. Their ult's there for Ruopi. Olba dies before he can use his Dragon Blade. That might be big for them here. Olu's ult is going to come up in just a second, see if he can get a good Graviton off now. He's going to try it, but Olba's respawned and will be making his way back. He will fall. Olu go down, but his Graviton went up. Didn't really make a huge impact. Rusku dies before the Riptide comes out. Kuhia uses his smash, and it does get the ult down. Charges deep and is still alive for a little bit longer, but he's gonna get low. Needs the healing of the last second. Elfie fell. Olba's still down again without using his Dragon Blade. Nemesis are doing well to keep themselves alive here, but they haven't got enough on the point. It's into overtime. Ence are back standing again. They are going to get picked off as Moira falls. Zarya falls, Ruopi falls again, and they get Kali. This is looking good for Nemesis on the point, but it's still back and forth. Elfie will fall, and they have finally got control.
Yeah, really scrappy fight. Everyone throwing in ultimates as they get him, but Kuhia there played so aggressively and was so well supported by his team. He was able to make so much space, keep everyone alive, but they've now got an ult disadvantage, and they are 99% down here, so Nemesis need to hold, and a lot of this is going to be around how much work they can get done with the sound barrier.
Yeah, they do have that sound barrier up, and they need to try and get something up on Kuhia. He's at 85%. He could get his ult, the Dragon Blade, at the moment, but he needs to get it before it's too late. Kuhia is so incredibly low. He will fall. The tank's out of the picture before any more ults. They're starting to get pushed in. Ence do lose Olba, but he's already done the damage as 4 members of Nemesis are down and dead. Ice has been D-Max, chased down and finished. Rusk is dead, and they are all off the point. Overtime is ticking through, and it will go to Ence, and they do take point number 1 here on map 3.
Yeah, it was closer again, but we just saw Ence always seem to have more ultimates or a better ultimate economy in general, and just cycled everything a lot better. And Nemesis, potentially we'll see maybe changes some heroes here, but again, they seem to be sticking towards this triple tank, and Junkrat combination, and it's not worked out for them so far. And they clearly feel this is the composition to run in this meta, in with this sort of last-minute change to the patch that they're coming into. But it's been a struggle.
That we kind of expected this from teams to say, look, we haven't had much time to practice on this patch. We can't do changes because of it. Stick to what we know, and that feels like what it is. They have switched it up slightly, bringing in a Reaper instead of a Junkrat now. But they're on the point already, fighting as hard as they can. Reaper is doing what he can to try and get as much damage out as possible. Rupi's blocking a lot of it. He's getting his ult charged nicely. Kuhiha, however, is charging a lot more of his ult, up to 60% already, but Olu is getting lower and lower. Snappy's getting his ult. Moira always going to come up. Coalesce will be there in any second, but Olmo will fall just before it comes on. He is going to trigger it. Ice has been demeked. Karafsku's down. Kuhiha is so incredibly low and will also fall before the ult can come out from Lucio. He pops it as soon as it triggers. He does get it onto 3 people. Olu, the off-tank, is healthy. Hepper uses his Coalesce as Elfie will fall. The Lucio and Diva are down on Ence. The point is still ticking over towards Ence, but Nemesis are holding as best they can. Risku dies again before the Reaper ult can get close to being completed. Elfie's Lucio has almost got his up for Ence, and the sound barrier will be big for them as they are continuing to keep control of the point. Kuhiha comes back and will fall again. Moira is down as Ice gets demeked and will fall once more, and there is the cap going in for Ence. And they still have 4 ultimates.
I think this really represents the difference we see in these teams here. Look at the ultimates that were thrown in just to basically stall and maybe try and clutch a turnaround fight there from Nemesis, compared to Ence, who just took their time.
At 90%, Snap at 78, everything locked. There comes a big Graviton in. Dragonblade goes in through, picks off 3s, looking for Moira to get 4, and it's a huge one. Down deep goes Olba. They're looking to pick up the Reaper as well. It's only Diva left alive. She will get demeked as the rest respawn. Pushed right back again. She's picked off. And it's a devastating fight, which actually only used 3 out of their 6 ultimates to get done.
Yeah, so still in a pretty good situation, and it all comes down to that first fight. Like, Kuhiha took a really good early position, but then gave away a deflect kill onto their Reaper. And now they're going to try and bash their heads through again, but here comes a self-destruct over the top. They use Graviton.
Graviton goes on through. Smash comes out from Rupi, and he does do work, but despite the Graviton landing, Kuhiha and Havaruska are the first 2 to die. Olu will fall quickly afterwards on the back of his own Graviton, and Ence don't lose a single player, despite being on the receiving end of that push.
Yep, they've now finally got all of the ultimates out of Ence here, so this is their chance. They've not got the best ultimates, they've got the Death Blossom and the Coalescence, but they have the advantage, and we see Kuhiha going aggressive once again.
Death Blossom goes out, but again, no one has died. Olba does finally fall, but he falls to Ice of all people. Rupi and Lali get kills each. Kavarusku does take Rupi down eventually, but the damage is still coming out heavily in Ence's favor as they pick off, again, 4 players of Nemesis. 85%. There's one more push coming out from Nemesis here. They're not going to have any ults for it. They might get a couple up at the last second, but look how close Ence are to all of their ultimates. With 93%, it's now or never for Nemesis, and I can't help but feel it's more likely going to be never.
Carvarau's gone behind to check to touch point. We'll keep it alive for now. It's getting met by the Moira. They kind of divided the team here. It's going to be a scrappy fight, but it's into overtime already, and the tanks are getting cleaned up at the front. Carvarau and Lucio did keep a point alive, but now everyone from Ence is coming back and they're completely outnumbered.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's going to be another 3-0.
The ult comes through from Lucio to delay them a little bit more, but the overtime is ticking down and they need to get someone on the point, but I'm not sure they got anyone. And there it is, 3-0 victory for Ence, which started out just like we saw with Giganti, with a momentary worry, a wobble on the first map, on the first round. But from there on out, they got their stride, they showed their experience, they proved why they were the invited teams and the higher seed, so to speak, and their experience clearly shone through.
Ence, especially after a somewhat poor run in the Pit Championship, I believe they didn't win any of their group stage games. I think they maybe only won 1 map.
That's a poor run's one way to describe that, yeah.
Yeah. If you lose all your games, it's generally, you're pretty safe to say it's a
poor run, yeah.
Poor run, yeah. But coming in here, winning the game, not just winning it early, but winning it pretty convincingly in the 3-0 is got to feel good. Obviously a big confidence booster. And it's starting to look like this is maybe this assembly winter 2018 2018 is starting to take the shape of where it's come down to Giganti, or NIP when they were called NIP, versus Ence, and them two in the final. And so far, from what we've seen of the two qualified teams, I don't know if we've seen enough to see either of them upsetting either of these top teams.
Yeah, these two qualified teams, as much as I would have liked to see it happen, I'm not feeling like tomorrow is going to show a different result when one of them faces off again, but it's nice to see them try it. Interesting to watch the two of them clash themselves in the following game from here. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, as we are obviously going to have Team Nemesis playing up against Menace, sorry.
Yeah.
So that will be an interesting one to watch. We are going to see Ence playing Giganti tomorrow, and the interesting thing to that is now we've seen both teams play the same 3 maps. Both of them played that opening up. They've shown their compositions on it. They've shown their plans, so to speak, for that going forward. And now they have all night to go home, discuss theorycraft, discuss and figure out how best to play off against each other on those 3 maps. So that's going to be an interesting game tomorrow.
Yeah, it's something we didn't really touch on. Is the way the schedule works is the winner of these 2 opening games will play each other on the first game of day 2.
Yeah.
So they're done. They can get their stuff. They can go home. They can relax. They can eat. They have plenty of time. You know, it's barely even late here in Finland.
Yep, no.
They've got all the time in the world to sit there and prepare. And obviously, we've said it before. Even though we've seen various incarnations of all the rosters, they've played each other so often. This is like the quintessential clash of the top again in the upper bracket final. And I want to feel like we'll get more from Nemesis in the next game. I feel like they are the team that maybe has more potential out of them and Lati Menace.
Yeah.
But I don't think we saw it in that game. Again,
No.
I don't want to harp on about it too much, but I think they tried to lean into the meta. They leaned into those tank compositions, and I think that hurt them. And I feel like we need... Firstly, I just want to see Olu on the Genji. That just seemed... That's just...
You were talking about that
yeah,
in our prep beforehand. You were talking about that before we were on stream and stuff as well. And you asked for it during the game, and we never saw him bring it out.
It always feels like it kind of reminds me of like Philadelphia Fusion and the old FaZe team. You know, like you've got Shadowburn. I'm not saying Olu is as good as Shadowburn, but similar kind of concept on a smaller scale in terms of his place in respective to his team and the teams they're playing. Just let him play his best role. Don't worry too much about leaning into the meta. Don't worry. Put your best players on their best heroes and play your game.
Yeah, that is often how these... It feels mean saying that how these lower tier games go. Like, yes, at the proest of the pro top level, yes, you can put players on slightly off champions. They're still so good at it that within the team, that's what you need. And within the composition and the way your opponents play each other, you need that thing. But when you're at this slightly lower level of competition where there are mechanical mistakes happening, there are smaller things here and there, ultimately, sometimes you can just get people winning by putting them on their best champions or best heroes without those mechanical mistakes, because they know that hero so well that they will outdo the composition just in sheer skill. Maybe give him a chance to do that tomorrow against Lati Menace. Yeah,
I mean, I think that is all correct. I think that we should obviously give a slight bit of lenience towards the teams because of the narrow timescales they're on, and they're
far from ideal.
I mean, they both have. They've only had a couple of days. They basically just have to pick what they want to do and go with it. You know, like either we lean into it or we lean out of it and just do what we would do, or a Zen or something. You know, so you have to make a decision very quickly, and you also have to lean back on something you have experience of. And Menace have been a team who have been together as a roster for a very long period of time. So they would have played tank meta most likely, or a more tank-heavy meta together. So they do have that to fall back on. But I think, particularly when you look at Olu, I think he got outclassed by Lally in that Zarya role. And even though Kahia had some good moments where he played really aggressive and it looked like he was going to make the turnaround, he never really seemed to be able to get enough to do it, you know. And a few times again, what we saw from Lati Menace actually, where they'd sort of win the fight or win the early part of a fight but not be able to finish it off.
Yeah, so moving on from there then, we will have Lati Menace versus Team Nemesis in just a moment. Well, I say just a moment. We'll have a short break and we'll have some more interviews, and then we will go into Team Nemesis versus Lati Menace. It is going to, of course, be another fresh set of pick and bans. Going by the theme of today, are we going to see these same 3 maps? Do we think these maps are being picked because of the changes in the meta and the patch and the way things are? Or is it opponent-based and we will see a change out
I
when
think
they face each other?
It's a tough one, because obviously when you go into banning maps, there's sort of, I guess, 2 choices if you want to simplify it. You either ban maps you're bad at, or you ban maps the enemy are good at.
Yeah.
Or obviously you can combine the 2. But both teams have looked better on the control maps, and there are only 2 control maps available. So I reckon both teams will. I don't think either team will ban those. I reckon they'll both be fairly happy to play those.
Yeah.
But they've both looked fairly disappointing on. Well, I guess Eichenwald is the only other map we've seen.
So, yeah, interesting to see. Do you think the disappointment for Nemesis there on Eichenwald came just getting that very first control point, ultimately, getting activating the payload. Disappointment for Nemesis came in moving their payload. They got control of it, they got it up to the wall, but couldn't break through that second, or that technically first payload checkpoint, second point. Now, looking at that, do you think the Nemesis are going to, all right, well, it's not our best perhaps, we didn't win it, but we did better than Nemesis did, and we know how to hold and take that first point. They clearly have troubles with, they're clearly struggling with that. Do you think that'll give them the confidence to let it through?
I think so. I wouldn't be surprised if I don't know if it'll be like left in as the sort of 5th map that's just left over.
Okay.
But I mean, it's hard to tell because we've actually seen 3, despite
exactly. We've still got so many other maps in here that haven't been chosen or shown and called total in the day. And actually, to talk on that, with both these teams straying towards a favor for control points, with there only being 2, if we see both of those, where do we see that 3rd, 4th pick actually going through? If neither of them want, what if it gets banned, as said, they can lead towards this completely escort maps, perhaps, or going towards more of the assault maps?
I don't know. Everyone seems fairly keen to avoid the assault maps in general as a sort of like, I guess, blanket statement. So I imagine we'll stick around the payload stuff, but also people seem hesitant to take it to King's Row as well. So it's hard to tell. I mean, I think what will be almost more interesting is whether they stick with the compositions they've been playing.
Yeah, that's, I think, definitely the thing to look at is the compositions are the things that are a bit more consistent. They definitely seem to be where the problems are coming from more than the map, so to speak, but we've already seen 3, so we can't really speak to that. And we'll have to wait and see and find out how these 2 teams shape off. They might switch things completely when it comes to playing each other. It might have been that we've seen these strategies purely because their opponents were Ence and Giganti at the time.
It's one of those things that can sort of, if one team switches, the other team will probably switch. Do you know what I mean? Like nobody maybe wants to be the first one to try and lean out of a meta, but if the other team starts running dive, then you'll switch to dive to deal with it as well. We
definitely saw some things from Nemesis where they were teasing it, and they definitely had feelings towards more of a dive than we saw from Nemesis there at all. Nemesis, of course, stayed very static the whole way through. Nemesis had a couple of moments where they gave it a shot, so we'll see whether they want to go deeper in on that now that they've seen how Nemesis play.
Yeah, I think it will be a close one. Obviously, nobody wants to go out, and we should be having that game fairly shortly.
Yeah, we are going to run to a commercial break now. We don't have an interview with them in their last game, so when we come back from this break, we will have that game between Nemesis and Menace. Don't go anywhere.
Cross Team Nemesis with your team, Team Ence. How does it feel to be a player again?
Yeah, of course, it feels really good. It's been like 2 years last time I was at the States playing. Of course, at least they are doing so well that we took the game 3-0.
So you're at the same time, are you still their coach, or have you just left that role for another player?
Yeah, we have different coach than me now, and we have analyst in our team. Our coach is Nixe, and then we have analyst Tucci. So, of course, I'm little bit trying to do the coach part also, but mostly focusing on my playing because it needs so much more.
Well, tomorrow you're going to be playing against Team Giganti, who won last year the Contenders season, for the first Contenders. Are you worried about your own skills? Are you too rusty to play against them?
Yeah, well, of course, I know that at the moment I'm not even close at their level, so it will be really hard. But who knows?
So if you win, it's going to be because you were such a good coach to those guys that they could rise to a higher level.
No, more like everyone else is pushing my wheelchair and doing the stuff for me. Let's hope they can do it really good tomorrow.
Well, there you heard it. Elfi, our resident wheelchair person, he's going to be getting ready for tomorrow's matches. And after around 45 minutes at 6:30, we're going to start our final match of the day, the losers bracket match between Team Nemesis and FC Lahti Menes. And we'll be right back after these messages.